Tens of millions of families with Alzheimer's disease and dementia all over the world, including our family. We are Alz In The Fam. I'm Allan Fair.
And I'm Poli Fair Noise. We're siblings, we are parents, but we're also caregivers.
This is our podcast. This is our support group. Welcome to our family. Alzheimer's sucks, but this family lives, laughs, and learns as we fight for a cure. Welcome. All right, welcome to a super special holiday episode of Alz In The Fam, where you've heard me and Poli and Boni and Trissi talk about our kids, and it is our honor to have all of our kids on this Thanksgiving episode of Alz In The Fam, and we asked each of them to think about a memory of their grandmother, our mother, and we're going to kick it off right away. I'm going to turn it over to you, Trissi, to introduce Luke and your kids to talk about a special memory, and we'll see what the gang has to say.
Sure. Well, first up is my precious son, Luke. I'm sure Luke has a good story or two to tell you guys. So I will hand it over to you, Luke.
All right. Thanks, Mom. So there's definitely a lot of like memories and certain like experiences and foods too that I can tie back to my sort of experience with grandma. But one of the most like cherished memories that I have had with her growing up was this one specific night when our parents dropped me and my sister off at her house to spend the night. It was in like October of 2006, and I was super into baseball like at the time, and the World Series happened to be on that night, and I was following it like in the Washington Post throughout the whole week. And the game started at 8, but my parents had this rule where they wanted us in bed by like 8:30. So I begged Grandma to let me watch the game between the Cardinals and the Tigers. So she ended up letting me get into her bed, and we turned on the game and we watched it, I think, all the way through the 7th inning, and I ended up falling asleep. And I woke up in her bed the next morning, and she made us her classic banana pancakes and put on the highlights onto ESPN, and we were talking about the game, and it was just kind of cool to see how she really got into it that night too. And it just showed like how much that she cares about us and our hobbies and passions. So yeah, that's definitely one of the best memories I've had with her. So
that's awesome. And she's not a baseball fan.
No.
She's a Luke fan.
No, I think one of the best things about our mom, our grandmother, is that she loves us so much that anything we're interested in, she was interested in. So I'm a child of the 80s. So I grew up listening to glam rock. Like I loved Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith growing up. And I'm sure that in reality, grandma, mom, Carmen probably would never listen to that music on her own, but was just so supportive, and I felt like decided that she liked it because I liked it. Just always loved our passions so much, and it's just great to hear that story. Thanks, Luke.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. That's a good one. The things you find out when your children grow up. I love it. Next up, we have my adorable, amazing daughter, Chloe Bennett. She'll be home soon for Thanksgiving. I can't wait. And here's Chloe.
Okay, so one of my favorite memories was at Grandma's house, and we would always take all of the old bikes that our parents used to ride out of the shed or up from the basement when we would go over there, and they were all like kind of rusty, and so Grandma would pump up all the tires for all of us kids, and we would bike down the street and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure I actually learned to ride a bike on her street, so that's a pretty cool memory that I have. But my favorite day of all of us cousins doing that was actually when Grandma herself rode the big wheel down the street. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever when I was a kid. I mean, looking back on it, it's still pretty funny, but I don't know. It just shows how active she really was with all of us. And I also remember she would always jump on the trampoline with us too. So it was just little things like that. But yeah,
How
it's gotta
old
be
were
one of my
you?
favorites. Sorry?
How old were you when she rode the big wheel?
Oh, I think I was probably 6 or 7, maybe. I was pretty young. Yeah.
No, but I mean, so Grandma had to be in her 70s by then, right? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Riding a big wheel.
She would jump on the trampoline with us too and everything. So
And she always loved the big wheel. I remember her doing that when we were growing up.
It's also a fair trait to be able to be small enough to fit on one of those things.
That's
so
true.
That is true.
Also, as a side note, I am shocked that none of us died on those bikes. I was full, looking back, I'm amazed that one of them just didn't disintegrate while we were riding them.
Yeah, and that's another story, by the way, that I have never heard before. I did not know you would actually pull bikes out of the basement and shed. That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. They
never let us in the basement, but you did go out from the shed.
Yeah. I mean, those big wheels were made of plastic tires, and I would imagine that, this big wheel may have belonged to me. You could just imagine it like disintegrating and turning to dust. And she's like all 5'0" of her riding it.
Yeah. And she was the only one on Grandparents' Day that climbed up into the tree for it with Chloe. I do remember that because I was worried about how she was going to get down.
All right. Well, huge love to the Bennett twins, Chloe and Luke. We're all excited to get together on Thanksgiving. See you soon. I'm going to turn it over to Poli next to introduce her kids.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm lucky to have with me today my daughter, Alex, who is living all the way across the country in California, close to Luke. And Alex, so proud of you. And I'd love to hear your story about Grandma.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many memories with Grandma. I feel like I'm the oldest in the family, so it's really hard to boil down like a lifetime of memories to just one. But one that sticks out to me is like Grandma would always, whenever I had like a lacrosse tryout or like my SATs or anything, she would tell me that she was crossing her fingers for me. And like she would just like, my mom would tell me she would just be like walking around her house like with her fingers crossed. She would like keep them crossed the whole time, like until it was over. And like I think that helped me accomplish the things that I did. Like I don't know, like I think that she was like somehow keeping it together for me. And then the other thing was I like went to University of Maryland, and I would always come home and she would be at my house because she was like living there, and I would just talk to her about everything, and she always had such good advice about school and friends, and especially she always wanted to know about boys. And she would like just have so much to say, and then she would forget what I would tell her, and then I would be so excited and I would tell her again, and like it was just like those special moments, and nothing specific, but just like that stuff.
I think that's so cool, Alex, because the thing about Grandma is she's always had good advice for a long time, even when she was, approaching the middle stages of Alzheimer's. She would come up with some real good, advice for you. And she was always on your side. You were always the good person, and any person who made you slightly unhappy was like, would just be dead to her. That's it. Right?
Yeah.
Always on your side.
Thank God there weren't any conflicts in the family. I'm pretty sure her head would explode.
Exactly.
We love each other too much.
There you go.
Going to the asking about boys, that's not just reserved for you. Every time we see her to this day, and well, especially to this day, because she asks us like 8 times every time we see her, if if we're dating anyone, and we should always make sure to date rich, which is, her favorite bit of advice that she's given me since I existed. But she's always had that dating advice.
She has.
Good dating.
What?
She had great advice on what to wear. I remember like showing her my formal dresses even, and like job interview outfits. Like she had great fashion sense.
Yeah, that's true.
What I love about that story, Alex, is I haven't thought about her hands and what they look like, but there's something very specific about grandma's definitely. Hands. They're sort of like distinct at the knuckle area, like the top knuckle, and she'd wear her engagement ring on like on her middle finger, maybe, right?
Yeah, she had like a big diamond pinky ring, and she would often have like orange nail polish.
She loved that orange. Yeah. Well, we're lucky today to also have my son Jack with us. Jack's here, and we're so proud of Jack too. And he's been kind enough to come up with at least one story about Grandma. Go ahead, Jack.
So a memory I have of her is from when we were, our noise family was coming back from a short trip, and we had asked Grandma to take care of our dog, Maggie. And Grandma had never really wanted to take care of a pet, but she agreed because she loved us. And we came back and we asked, how was she? Was she well behaved? She'd do business outside, eat well, and she was like, yes. And how did she sleep? And Grandma says, well, I put a blanket on her because I was worried she would get cold.
A dog with a fur coat.
This 50-pound lab with a fur coat. She was worried about it. And that sticks out to me because it showed how much she cared. A pet is a member of the family, and she spoiled Maggie. And it showed how much she cared about us, that she would take on this responsibility for us. So
you can't, Grandma grew up in Puerto Rico. And so she, in Puerto Rico, not a lot of people let their dog, at least at the time she was growing up, in their house. A dog was an outdoor animal. Pets at all were a trial for her. She didn't really want them. And so to take care of our pet was just special.
Listening to that story, Grandma is obsessed with things that she perceives as helpless, needing to be warm. If it's a baby, it's got to have hats, socks, everything must be protected at all times, even the dogs and the animals that she claims not to like, but would always take care of.
Yeah, every time I slept at her house, she always made me wear socks to sleep, even though I hated it. She wouldn't let me sleep without socks on.
Oh my God, she did that for me too.
And you're not warm unless you're sweating.
True.
Yeah.
I would take those socks off the moment that she left, and sometimes she'd come back and make me put them back on.
That sounds like Grandma.
Well, all right, so let's turn it over to Boni to introduce her kids.
So you can see here that I am lucky enough to have both of my children with me full time right now. And so I'm going to introduce first my oldest, who is Violet. Violet is in college, but locally. So she is living at home right now, and I'll let you take it away.
So I've been around Grandma for 22 years. So there's a lot, from the banana pancakes I previously mentioned to every time that I would stay over, she would make me my most beloved kid cuisine. But really what stuck with me is that when I would stay with her, whether they would dump me there to go on vacation or for another or for more serious reasons, every time she would spend the whole time just doting on me, making sure I was fed, I was comfortable, I was doing whatever it is I wanted. She would take me, on those death trap bikes around the neighborhood. But every time it would end with her, when it came time for bed, she would make sure I had my socks on, that I was entirely too hot. And then she would read me a story and then sing me to sleep. And, when compared with my other grandmother, who was also a wonderful, beloved, loving person, it's a really stark contrast to the level of doting that she just naturally applied to everyone that she loved.
Yeah, down on the floor playing with you.
Yeah. I mean, there was no point at which I was kind of sitting on my own looking for something to do. She was always looking around, trying to find a way to include herself and include me in whatever it is she was doing. And, that really was a big deal for me, because, if I was alone, if I was left with her, I could be missing my parents. It could be a little bit nervous or lonely. And she never let that slide. She would always come and do her absolute best to make sure that I was included.
Okay, and so now I'm going to introduce my younger son, JP, the Bubba.
All right, so I've heard a lot of really good memories and all that. My story isn't really a memory. It's something that Grandma does every time she sees me, multiple times. Even before she was sick, she did it multiple times, but now it's a lot more. So every time she sees me, she comes up to me and calls me handsome. And so, I mean, that's given me like a lot of confidence, honestly. Everyone in my family is like, you need Grandma to come over here and call you handsome again. Or whenever I look at myself in the mirror, it's like, you've been talking to Grandma too much. It's just like, I don't know. It's like sometimes if you hear it enough, you just start believing it, I guess. But I don't know. It's like stuff like that she just really cares about you, and she wants you to be happy, and she wants to compliment you and make you feel good. Like, I don't know. She's a loving, caring person. And the last time I saw her, this is funny, but she started playing with my hair and giving me like a hairdo. So.
But
She plays with my hair.
handsome.
I have a lot more of it. But. So the thing about her, drowning us all in compliments is that from anyone else, it would seem kind of contrived or, insincere. But even before, all this, you could always tell that every time she said it, she believed it. And she was proud of us, and she was so happy to see us, growing up. And she believed every word she said when she said good things about us.
No, and she also sometimes says some mean stuff, but at least it's honest.
She's told me to go to the gym about 1,000 times.
Stand up straight.
Stand up
She
straight.
tells
that.
me to
Always stand up straight.
A million times every time.
Like a girl.
She will take my shoulders and yank them back.
Oh yeah, she would dig her fingers into my back until
Yeah, like
It's amazing because we can probably remember her, say, with the exception of perhaps JP, we can remember her, say, 10 years ago and where she is now. But a lot of what we're talking about just hasn't changed at all. It's just that she's still so sincere about wanting to say something nice, loving, and supportive. And just think we're so fortunate as a family to have that in her, despite the fact that she's not as well as we'd like her to be any longer.
Well, and I think, what all the kids are talking about is that absolute focus on them when they were with them, whether it was at their house or at a sporting event or whatever it is. Because one of my favorite stories, which goes along with what Luke and Jack and Chloe and everyone was saying, is when I took her a few years ago when she was first starting to get sick to a football game, and Violet was in the marching band, and she would not watch the game at all. She would only look at her. And I would be watching the game, and she would look at me and say, "What are you looking at?" And I would say, "I'm watching the game." And she'd say, "But Violet's over there." And I'm like, "Well, I know, but they're not playing.
We're just sitting there.
I only want to watch that." That was it. That was all she would do. Same thing with JP. "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "Well, I'm watching the game." "JP is over there." I'm like, "He's sitting on the bench, Mom." What am I?
That was rare.
Yes, it was rare. It was only when they had to put in the second string. So just that absolute focus and attention on our kids. And we knew for sure that they were safe and loved and they felt it.
Now, there's actually something comforting about the fact that that hasn't changed as her disease has progressed, because it's become increasingly clear. It was never really in question, but it's become increasingly clear that that's, you know, part of the core of who she is. I mean, that part of her hasn't changed. She asks, you know, lots of things are different, obviously, but the one thing that hasn't changed is that she is, you know, unwaveringly supportive and interested in all of us. And it's just, it's comforting, I think.
I think that's the whole thing we're most thankful for this Thanksgiving, is that her love for us remains the same, even through the fog of Alzheimer's. It's really, you can still feel the love. She still tries to express it every time she sees us. And just takes such delight in all her grandchildren.
And how different of an experience than me, you, Bonnie, and Trissi had with our grandmother. So we only had one. We never knew our mom's mother. We knew our father's mother, but she wasn't a warm and fuzzy person by any means. And so it was interesting for me to watch our mother be a grandmother. It was like, oh, now I get why some people think grandparents are really nice and really sweet. Like I didn't have that. I only had her in terms of being able to understand that. So it's a really wonderful thing to be able to give that gift of an awesome grandparent or grandparents to our children, and to hear all of you say that, it's very much who she was as a mother too.
Yeah.
I do have a memory of when Marco was first born. She was as close to obsessive over that little infant, I think, as possible. I mean, she would, like, I remember we visited Tina's parents' house, and she was there, I believe. This is a little bit of a muddled memory, but I mean, she was like staring down one of the other grandparents because she wanted to be the one holding him, and she wanted to be the one, you know, doting on him, and she was not pleased when it was not her turn.
Yeah. I remember that. That's right, Violet. All right. I thought I saw and heard Marco.
You did. So I'm really excited to introduce my son, Marco, who is 11 and also has a very special relationship with Grandma. So he's gonna talk about that now.
All right. There he is. Hi, Marco.
Hi.
Hi, Marco.
So one thing I remember about Grandma is every single time I came to her house, she would have a buffet of things made out of coconuts. Also, every single time I was there, she let me get some of Dad's old stuff, like action figures and that kind of stuff. And also, I do remember one time I went to visit her in a retirement home. We all went to the park, and that's all I really remember.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Here, hang out.
Thanks, Marco. I remember being there with you.
Here, hang out and talk with us. We're just shooting the breeze now. You did great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good job, Marco.
Marco, I remember Grandma being so excited. You were still a baby, and I drove up there. I think Bonnie and I drove, right? Trissi, your kids might have still been a little young, but Bonnie and I drove up with Alex and to see you when you were a baby. And Grandma was just never happier than to see you, Marco. You were like, just her face was joy and sunshine. You were the best thing ever since Allan, I guess.
Right.
Or maybe since
right
JP.
before you joined and came down, Violet was remembering how obsessed Grandma was with you when you were a baby.
All right.
She kept like she didn't want to share you with your Yaya.
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Grandma
Yeah.
was sure that that the person wanted to take she couldn't separate her love for each of you and the fact that to her you were this perfect treasure prize, so valuable that she was sure that anyone else must want to steal you. So, and that was for every single including Marco, including Ava, everyone. Yeah. Hey Marco, did Grandma used to make you wear socks so you wouldn't get cold? She
I don't remember, but I think one time she made me wear stockings. Because I was freezing.
That checks out.
That's exactly the kind.
She kept her house quite cold in those later years at her home. Could get
Or hot.
could get very drafty.
Bye, Marco.
So I also wanted to introduce my daughter Ava, and I guess it's interesting. I think if I could get Ava to come down, she's a little young and shy. She's 7, and I talked with her about this, but I know that the story that she would want to tell is how Grandma always says, "Mamma mia, pizzeria."
Mamma mia, Papa Pia for me.
Holy moly guacamole for me.
That's new. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think in Ava's case, she is just young enough where maybe just kind of missed the opportunity to remember and really solidify some of these memories that the rest of us get to enjoy. But we remind Ava and keep that memory alive with her as well, and I know has a very special relationship with Grandma.
I think Ava must know because every time we FaceTime you, Allan, and Ava's there, Mom just starts going, "I love you, I love you, I love you. You're so beautiful." But she'll also sometimes say, "What a beautiful baby," to your 7-year-old. So.
Yeah, I think Ava's a little frozen in time from Grandma's perspective. But what a joy that we've been able to Grandma had four kids, and we were able to, from that, we have 8 wonderful kids ourselves. And for me personally, listening to everyone's story, it's just I have no doubt, and one of the joys and things that gives me my confidence and source of strength in life is that there's just no doubt in my mind that this woman loved me. And I think we all feel that and share that, which is, I just think, one of the undercurrents of things that defines what family is. So upon this Thanksgiving holiday season, I'm super grateful for that, and
yeah,
really proud of all you guys and what you've become, and see the role that Grandma played in your lives. It's very special.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks for listening to Alz In The Fam. In the fight against Alzheimer's and dementia, we are all family. Find us at Alz In The Fam on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and on our website, alzinthefampodcast.com. We appreciate you clicking that subscribe button on Apple, Google, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast catcher may be. Alzheimer's sucks, but we are in it together. We are Alz In The Family. Talk soon.